Hey guys, thank you so much for joining and investing your time with us here at Hindsight is 2020 series. My name is Kevin Campbell and I am the visionary of Kingdom Hearts and co-leader with my wife Shelly, and I will be the host of this virtual panel this evening.
And hey, everybody, I am Danielle Thorpe, Creative Content Lead for Kingdom Hearts, and I will be your co host this evening.
We are excited about all that is going to happen tonight. We have an incredible panel of creatives from different genres of the arts, and they're going to be sharing inspirational insights and practical tips on how to maximize this decade as creatives. Now, this discussion will be centered around the first C that we've been dealing with in our Hindsight is 2020 series, and that first C is connected. And so the panel is going to be discussing how that word connected plays a big part in their lives as creatives.
Before we introduce our panel, I want to encourage you, first and foremost, to head over to our social media spaces at Kingdom Hearts Barbados, like this video, and even share it with a friend, two friends, many friends. We want to get the word out with as many people as possible, so share it with your creative friends and followers. Now, our goal today, as Kevin might have said, is that you come away with something. We want you to come away with a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new strategy that you can apply to your life, to your workflow, to be more successful as a creative, whatever your discipline is. So just to give you a little synopsis of what you can expect here today. Now, we're going to give each of our panelists a moment to briefly introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their background as creatives. Then we're going to dive into the conversation about connected and what that means for each of our panelists. Kevin and I are going to ask some questions based on that theme, and our panel will share their thoughts with us based on their experiences, drawing from some of their own stories and examples that will hopefully help you to navigate some of the opportunities and challenges that you face as a creative yourself. And finally, to wrap everything up, we're going to come back at the end, do a quick roundup, and summarize some of those key takeaway points for you.
Great. So let's jump in with our introductions. I am going to say ladies first. So Jacinth, let's begin with you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jacinth Howard. I am a writer by profession. I write in all three genres: prose, poetry, and drama. I'm also a teacher for the last 10 years. I'm a blogger at the Light in the Cracks for the 2 years, and I specialize in literary criticism in speculative fiction. That's a brief synopsis.
Excellent. So keeping with our ladies first, Sheridine, we're going to ask you to jump in.
Hi, good night. Yes, I'm Sheridine. By profession, I'm an art teacher. I have been doing that for the past 29 years. I've also heading the art and music department for more than 10 years. Apart from that, I have been working for over 40, almost going 40 years now, and I create inspirational art. I like to create inspirational music as well. And I also work with my own business where I mentor young artists, young students, and also I'm educating through art as a form of healing. So I also touch base with music as well. So I enjoy being creative, a creative being.
Nice. Who's next? Ricky DeJude, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, just let me take a moment here to thank Kevin, visionary of Kingdom Arts. It's a great thing that you're doing. This is just so revolutionary and encouraging to all the creatives out there in this season. My name is Ricardo De Jude of Ricky De Jude International. We are a design group of business that specializes in clothing for men and ladies. And we're also doing interiors. We've been in existence for over 20 years. And we are looking forward to I am looking forward to what God is doing in this season and being a part of this great move by Kingdom Arts.
All right. Thank you, Ricardo. Can we hear from the man in the corner, John Yard?
Hi, my name is John. and I'm so happy to be here. I am a singer songwriter. I'm also involved in artist development. I'm invested into raising the next generation of creatives, those
Love it.
who have a creative chip on their shoulder, who have a creative knack, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. I've spent the last couple of years mentoring them, teaching songwriting, teaching the just the ins and outs of the industry of music. I've been a creative as a forefront artist at the front for the last 10 years. I've recorded one full debut album. I've written for several artists across the region and a few international artists and quite a few local acts here in Barbados. I've recently, within the last year and a half, had the opportunity also to work um, with the with Corporate Barbados, most recently Digicel as an ambassador, and within the creative again, in the creative arts again, writing music with a couple of the other. No one has paid for advertising, so they're not going to get their names mentioned.
That's all right.
I've had a few. I've had a few corporate clients of recent. So music for me is from the stage performing as an artist, a worship leader, behind the scenes writing, behind the scenes and development, and behind the scenes encouraging you to purchase corporate Barbados' products. So I'm a musician in summary.
And finally,
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Junior Morgan. I am a creative. I don't know if I can necessarily give you a title. I am the owner of a media company that deals with everything from audio to video to photography. I have been a creative and you guys got me feel a little aged for the last about 30 years. I started as a musician. I'm still a musician, but I have dabbled in a number of genres, different creative genres. I've lived overseas professionally as a musician for a number of years. Worked with a record label in Toronto. My band was based in Europe for some years. And now I am actively involved as a photographer with my company, doing work for corporate Barbados and international agencies as well. I would have engineered also. I'm a sound engineer also. That's another one of the disciplines which I carry. And I would have worked with everybody from uh, CC Winans to Michelle Williams to Sizzler to Maroon 5 to a number of different acts internationally and locally. So I have a colorful past. Um, if you, I think that should be okay for now in terms of my submission.
I am going to kick off, Junior, by keeping you on the mic. I'm going to ask you tonight our first question. And we're keeping it around the word connected and plugging into God and how that really features in your life as a creative. But how do you practically, Junior, plug into God? Is it something that you have to plan? Does it happen organically? Do you have like a routine? Give us some insight into the life.
Okay. For me, it is a mix. It's kind of a mix. It depends really on the season of life I'm in. Sometimes I have a routine,
Right.
sometimes I don't. I see it as my relationship with God is something that is real. It is live. It evolves. There are seasons of like, for example, the beginning of the year started with me every single day during the week, Monday to Friday. I would normally go, like, for example, after I drop my son off to school, I would head to the beach and I would spend the first 2 hours there before 10 o'clock just with God, just reflecting, praying, worship, not necessarily any agenda, but basically connecting with Him. And that kind of formed the nucleus of a lot of the things that I would do. And that's me being intentional about the time because my phone is always going with clients' requests and deadlines and everything. But blocking that time, I had to carve that time out. Um,
Right.
on a daily basis. And there's sometimes that happens. There's sometimes that it happens a little bit more organically on the fly, depending on the schedule. Saturday mornings is a 6 o'clock prayer meeting that I'm very involved in. So that kind of keeps me as in terms of a routine. But if I miss the morning session, it doesn't mean that I don't do something in the evening. It could be very organic. But the one thing I would say that is intentional. It has to be intentional. That it happens throughout the day.
Great.
All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Sharadine? Any ladies, maybe?
I'm thinking, in terms of, I like the word Morgan used, that it has to be intentional. And I think that's where everything starts with our walk with God. It has to be intentional to maintain that relationship, relating with God, praying with God, reading His Word, and hearing from Him. And that has to be deliberate. Sometimes your objective is not even to go and create. It is just to make sure you remain connected with God for your own sanity, for your own spiritual growth. And while you're having that interaction with Him, something He drops into your spirit.
Excellent, excellent. So I think I heard John wanting to jump in.
Well,
John,
she just
go right ahead.
hit the nail on the head for me. I think life happens and seasons change, and much like Morgan just mentioned, I know what it's like to have times where first thing in the morning, spending that time with the Lord. But there are also times I'm recently a new dad, and I don't get to spend my first mornings anymore.
Congrats.
So, yeah, thank you. So those first few hours of the morning, my son, he wakes me up. But I'll tell you this, and I love that word intentional. Even in taking care of him, I see God's glory, and I see opportunities to worship God. And because my heart is postured to serve Him, my heart is postured to hear Him, my heart is postured to always to live in a place of gratitude, and also I'm a lover of God, and so every moment when I'm driving to work, whether I'm at home. Only recently, I was reading a quote online, and the Lord used it to minister to my heart in a really special way. And so I think because my heart is postured in that place where one thing have I desired of the Lord, and that one thing I seek, Psalm 27. I believe that like David, whether I'm laying on my bed, he says, I'm meditating upon you. So like my heart is postured in that state where Jesus is my fascination, and so I encounter Him, I experience Him in the different seasons of life. So right now I'm still trying to figure out the routine because I love the first few hours in the morning. But my son has taken that time, and well, again, I love that I can connect with the Lord in any moment, in any season, and I love it. Yeah, so I love that word.
I love how you put that, for sure, John. Just that, in the sense that your heart is postured towards Him, because then it kind of gives grace for whatever season you're in, that you're finding yourself in an increasingly busy season right now, and you might not be able to always be as intentional as you would like to be. But I like that when your heart is in the right place and is postured towards God, then technically you're always connected. You haven't switched it off at any point.
If I can say one more thing.
Go ahead.
I've been really looking at David a lot recently, and some just context about David's life. David was a father, he was a husband, he was king, he was a captain of the army. He had a really big profile, and so depending on what was happening in his life, things looked different. I really love that psalm where he says, "Listen, man, one thing, despite my portfolio, despite how we have to get ready for war, despite the kids need daddy right now, whatever is happening." One thing have I desired of the Lord. My heart is postured to look at Jesus. I also serve as a pastor, and so I love interacting with the Word of God, and I think it's His Word primarily that helps keep me in that place. That helps me then to see Him in everything. That helps me to hear when He's speaking in the not so traditional ways of experiencing God. Yeah.
Nice.
Because we are all here talking about being postured and being intentional, it doesn't mean that we're all, let me speak for myself, I am perfect. Because I know there are artists,
Me neither.
sometimes you feel as though you're disconnected with God because so many things have been happening in life. And it can take
Mm-hmm.
you so distracted mentally, emotionally, that you cannot function as a creative. But the reason
Mm-hmm.
why we can say be intentional is because we recognize that the only way we can connect and feel some semblance of order in our heart, mind, and spirit, we have
Mm-hmm.
learned that you have to spend time in and with God. And because of that,
Word.
we know now that regardless of what we go through in life, make time for God. Make time for God.
That's so good, Sharadine. Thank you for that. Before we move on, I want one of you, any one of you, to speak to the creative out there who feels like they've been struggling with connecting with God. They've not been able to carve out the time. And when they do get the time, they feel like, God may not be speaking or feel like the connection is gone, a bit fuzzy. What do you say to them?
Okay, I'll jump
I,
in.
Go ahead, Ricky.
Hi. So, if I can just weigh in here, I've found in my life as a Christian, what happened to me in my early years is that there was this hunger and thirst for God. And so I would have like a routine in that time where 4 or 5 times a day I would connect with God. Now, as I grow older in Christ and the business start to expand, I found that a routine needed in my life. And most of the time as creatives, we don't like routines. We like to be spontaneous, paint as we like, design as we like, draw as we like. And so what happened? It would start to put boxes or put you in that place where you feel as if you're caging on a wall or walls are just caving in on you. So I would say to the creatives who feel as if you are no longer connected to God, if you're so far away, if when you pray, you feel as if God is not hearing you. And when you're reading the word, it feels as if you're not enjoying it anymore. I've been there a number of times. And what keeps me going is that time where no matter what, that time now I've put aside so that if I have clients from China who want to do a video call, or someone from Canada who is connecting to get a piece shipped to them. I always make that time as a meeting time in my daily schedule, no matter what is happening. Yes, there are times when God will break in and say, "Take this call or do go to this meeting." But as for me, it's not a man that I'm meeting. I'm meeting with God, the Creator, the ultimate designer. So when I do that, I block that time as much as possible from people. And that's just the routine. All during the rest of the day, it is to do the business, go to work and design and all that. So I just want to say to you, if you are feeling that way right now, and you might have connected with God early, you've got your business or your creative to a place where it's being shown all over the world, and clients are calling you, or you feel as if nothing is happening and you feel as if God is forsaking you, I want to tell you, don't give up. Stay connected. One drop in a bucket, one drop of water in a bucket eventually fills it. So if you just eat a piece of the word, and if it's not saying nothing to you, keep eating it again. And if you're praying, Father, I feel so far away from you. That's all you need. And you will see how great He is, how loving He is. Because it's one thing for any of us to tell you that God is great, God is loving, and He's eager to forgive. But when you experience that, it takes you into a whole new level that you will never have with someone just saying it to you. Yeah, that's my piece.
All right. Thank you, Ricky.
I don't know if we have enough time, but I would like to jump in. I think there's something that is that okay?
Go ahead, Junior.
Yeah. Okay. Because what I'm thinking is that I don't want us to become legalistic with it. Yeah. In terms of when I say legalistic, in terms of yes, we are have to be intentional about our time, and I think a lot of good points were shared. However, I think it is important to let people know that God does not have you does not He's not the guy with the big whip. Like when you don't meet at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, session with Him, that He's going to be kind of like beating you over the top of the head. I think as we have relationship with people, just as we have relationship with our friends, we need to think of it that way and understand that God is for us, and it is not a case where He's holding a checkbook. You didn't meet me with me today. You didn't meet me last week. But yes, be intentional about carving that time out. And I would say this very quickly, based off of the last thing that I think John has said. Sometimes you may not feel it, and sometimes we don't always feel it. It's really not about feelings. It's not. I mean, when we connect in with God, it's really not about feelings. If this life were about feelings, we will be like a wave tossed in the sea. You know what I mean? But it is to know that you are being intentional and carving that time out. And sometimes it may make sense later, or something that you read or time that you spent may make sense in a little while. But don't beat yourself up with regards to having to feel that you need to have. If you don't do something or you don't meet with Him at 10 o'clock today for 2 hours, because then it could become just an exercise that you go through, and you don't really plug in with God, but you just said just enough to say that you did it. So I just want to put that balance in the picture.
Appreciate it, Junior. I just kind of had a question, since we're talking about, spending that time, whether it's that you're being intentional or you're creating a routine. How have you, and this, I'm asking for like practical examples here, I guess. So how have you actually seen getting better connected to God benefit your creative process? Maybe Jacinth, you can help me here. What is that like for you? Do you literally get an idea of a topic to write on? Do you get an image in your head? What does that look like for you? What is kind of some of the fruit that has come out of your time of being connected with God?
I would say that connectivity is really helpful in terms of focus, because a lot of us have several talents and several branches, and it's very easy to get distracted because there's so much media. We are so bombarded by so much information daily, and I think being connected to God gives you a measure of direction, where you know where to go next, what to do next. I mean, the light and the lamp before you may only show you the spot where you need to go right now. You may not see the whole thing, but it will be sufficient, because as you go along, the picture will get clearer. For me, I get ideas. My mind is always going. I'm a serious overthinker. It can be very problematic. So I know when there's an interruption in the stream of my thoughts, that is not me. It's more than likely that God did something in my head. And then as I develop it and watch it blossom, then I'm like, okay, yeah, this has nothing to do with me. So I do get topics maybe from observation. I might, or one thing that definitely happens a lot is God has given me gift of empathy, which feels very heavy sometimes. But even in terms of intercession, I might get somebody's name to just pray for them, and I'm like, I don't know why, but they may weigh on me for a while. Similarly with ideas like Callie Helligan, yes, when her baby died, I felt as if I knew her personally, and I wasn't able to get that weight off until I wrote it in a poem that I revised several times. So it can happen in different ways, but the connectedness definitely helps with focus and direction.
Okay, great. What about you, John, especially as like a very multifaceted creative? Do you find that helps you to streamline like which creative gift is for which moment or which season, or how to express what you're feeling or what you're getting in those moments of connection?
Yeah, most definitely. I think I love how Jacinth put it, because I do a lot of things, but I don't do all of those things at the same time.
Exactly.
And what I find myself trying to do all of those things at the same time, that's oftentimes when I either burn out and I am less productive.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I oftentimes, sometimes when when I'm in that space of butting all about the place, that's oftentimes a really good indicator for me. Something that I've been able to recognize. What is God saying? Hey, where is it that the Lord wants to right now? So when I find myself in that space, it's one of the things that my own heart is exposed by my busyness, that helps me to recenter, and it's when I'm in that place, when I'm connected, that I almost like my ears are fine tuned, or my heart is fine tuned as to where I'm supposed to be. I'm not going to say here that because I'm connected that my creativity is always better. But I'm definitely much more focused, because I do believe that there's the skill where we have to intentionally build on that. And I also believe that there's that space where inspiration also takes place from being connected. And so once I have that clarity as to where I'm supposed to be, I can be equally inspired as to whether he says something directly, or I just see something that catches my attention in that particular space, or I'm disciplined because I'm focused and I can commit myself to whether it be writing, whether it be working on my instrument, whatever it is. I'm just having that focus, being able to step away from the noise of all of the things I can do. That helps ultimately in productivity and in creating.
I like it. Thanks very much. I want to come back to something that Jacinth mentioned in her response. She talked about distractions. And now more than ever, we have tools like technology, which can both be inspiration and distraction for us as creatives. So I don't know, Junior, maybe you could tell me first, how do you strike that balance, especially as a photographer, which is a very visual medium? How do you strike that balance between being inspired by other artists around you and getting that inspiration from God directly?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I want to flip this whole thing on the head.
Okay.
Because I think there's some very key things that we need to establish first as creatives. As creatives, it says in the Bible that we were made, well, period. Every one of us, we were made for His pleasure, right? That's the central focus of life. Everything that we do should please God, right? That should be the basis. And then when you see the example of Jesus, everything that He did. When we talk about the miracles and his ministry, it would oftentimes start with Jesus being moved with compassion. Right? Now, everything that we do should be centered around love, by love, for love. And you know that God says God is love. That is right. So everything that we do should be centered around God, by God, and for God. Now, that has many different faces, because it can look several different ways, and it doesn't contradict itself in terms of you may struggle with a comment like that because you may be in a discipline where you are not able to, like you may be working for a company or something that you may not have, like as a graphic artist, the opportunity to design stuff that says Jesus saves. You understand? And you may be called by God to be in that situation. Now, we understand that your gift takes you before kings, and your gift makes room for you. The scriptures in the Bible that speak about that. So then, oftentimes, because there's so many different things that can happen, it could be like you're a Jacinth and you write an inspirational piece that speaks directly to kingdom and the gospel and that kind of thing. But then the question really that you are asking in terms of how do you stay connected and what do you know where to focus, if you come from the vantage point of everything that I do is for God, is by God. And remember, the other thing I want to mention is that God is God who gives the talents. The talents are His. You understand? The gifts, the talents and gifts are His. And so they're for His glory and for His purpose. And we need to establish that first. Now, when we establish that, we can say, okay, well, if this is for God, I need to remain connected to God because I need to understand how to flow, when to flow, where to flow. I particularly, there's one thing I don't do. I don't get caught up with titles, and that's maybe why I mistreat so many disciplines. It's because I don't see myself as a photographer. I don't see myself as a producer of music. I don't see myself as a songwriter or an engineer or a graphic artist, and I could go down the list. I see myself first of all as a worshiper, right?
Mhm.
And it has to be that if you are a worshiper, then basically the thing is, I do what, like Jesus says, I do what I see my Father do. I can do nothing by myself, and I do what I see my Father do. So if the premise is that we're connected with God and we're in love with Him, and He says, "Yo, I need you to write a song today for this person because they're lost. I need you to go connect with this person and do this photography for this particular client or this person, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to share the gospel." Now, the photo may just be for a birthday or for an ad or something that is different, but the opportunity that it gives you, you have a credible right to speak to that person or to interface with that person, where discipleship may occur. But because of your gift, there are corporate rooms in Barbados that I would have sat on as an advisor to say, "Look, this is the visual media that you need to use. We're not using this." And legit, I've been called in sometimes to help curb different types of streams of media that would have gone another direction. So it may not necessarily be where I taken a picture of someone worshiping, but the gift that takes you before kings kind of gives you an opportunity to speak into things. So what I'm saying then in summary is, because I know we don't have a lot of time, is that everything you do, whether it is inspiration with regards to writing a particular piece about God or being a creative that has to provide a service in one, you always have to be online, because ultimately it is God's talent. And He tells you, okay, well, I want you to go here because I need this to happen. I need you to say this, or I need you to paint this picture. I need you to write this song. I need you to do this dance, because it all comes back to being made for His pleasure, right? And that's why it's so important to be connected, because if you're not connected, then we're going after gifts, and the gifts become kings. And I'm a dancer, so I need to dance. And then we ask God to come into our gift, whereas God gives the gifts, and God is king, right? Not the gift is king. God is king, and He tells us how to execute the discipline, that when, where, how. Yes, develop it, but then He uses it. He determines our pace, how far we go. So, and that's why I would say it is imperative for us to always be online, because we need to know what the Creator wants to see from the creation, and to co-create with us. I hope that
I
makes
just have
sense.
it kind of does. I have a follow-up question based on the lines that you've gone down, because I feel like that's an easier concept to grasp for someone like yourself who has been doing this, like you said, for 30 years. What if let's say I'm a younger, whether in age or I've not really dabbled in this creative thing very much. How do I catch that blueprint for my life as a creative? Whereas you're saying, because what I'm hearing from you is that you need to get connected to the creator or the giver of the gift, because what we as
Right.
creatives can do is we can pigeonhole ourselves. We can
Yeah.
say, well, I know that I can draw, and I figure
Yeah.
God is only going to use my gift of drawing to bless somebody, or I'm only going to ever draw something. But if I don't know, somebody may come and ask me to write a poem, that I might feel like, well, that ain't really my lane. That's not really my thing. So how, as a creative, especially somebody who may be a little new to this or a little young in age or young in their skill set, really catch that blueprint of what is God's mandate for me as a creative?
Well, the first thing I would say that's required is relationship.
Okay.
And I would say, okay, because in relationship, then I can know and understand what God requires of me, and that for me personally, that's paramount. Now, when I say, okay, you can look at, to get on the other side of it is that of course you can look at the things that you have a natural propensity to do. You can look at, for example, like if you can draw well, or if you know, like John and he has son, his father's a singer, so he may gravitate towards music or
Mm-hmm.
different things. They're natural things that would give you an inkling in terms of an idea as to this is the stream I should go down. But as much as that is a stream, or there's a particular ease, like my son picks up music very fast. He would hear a song once, and this guy would sing it. Like you would go hear it once, and then he gets up the car and you see him later in the evening, he sing it. I said, "What's that you singing? This song from this morning?" And he makes it like he be literally go sleep, and I could hear him in his room making up songs, like legit, like making songs. So that's something that we as parents, we would hone. But here's the thing: as a young creative, I would say the thing that is primary above all else is that's necessary is relationship, because it's almost it's like thy word is a lamp unto my feet, like Jacinth mentioned. Is like he directs your path as to how to establish the thing that he has called you to, and to really help you to unearth those treasures or those giftings. And that you should always be like a babe at the beginning of your stage. You should never get too good at playing the drums or being a singer or songwriter where you say, yeah, I got this, so I can go this place and I can do this, and next year I can go, to this country. And you should always be at a place where you lay it down before God and you say, God, what do you want me to do with this? You know what I mean? Like, so in that, because if we define ourselves as I'm a singer, right? And God, wants you to go and to for example, to write a poem, or that may be any similar because you're a writer, or you might
Mm.
want to go and no, granted, if somebody called me to do a dance piece, I'm not good even venture because I know that my
Why
skill set
not?
does not cover. But I may do it for fun. I might be limiting myself. Okay, cool.
You just might be.
I
Try
could
to
be
think,
pretty
try to
good
think.
at it actually.
You might surprise
Yeah,
us
but
all, including yourself.
there you go. There you go. But here's the thing. I think that in this season, obedience is primary. And we've been going through this with our worship team. Of like obedience is so whatever God calls you to do, whenever, you should be like, okay, God, let me come on the water. You know, especially like with the worship team, because I'm the music director at New Dimensions, and we, of course, the apostles, they're big on things like prophetic worship and song of the Lord. So we have been going through the paces with singing spontaneous songs, singing scriptures. So sometimes it's always a challenge to like step out on the water, and the thing is like you were stepping into new things, and God is calling you, and He said, "Listen, I'm going to carry you." Right? But it's on the basis of having that relationship established, knowing who God is, that He will carry you. When you open your mouth to sing, He will fill your mouth with words. I hope that answers your question.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Cool.
Great. So I just want to stick a pin right here on this question about striking the balance between, getting your inspiration from other artists, from social media and, other sources, or from God directly. And, how do we strike that balance? So I'm going to throw that question out to Ricky. Can you weigh in here on this?
Wow, that's such a relevant question, and so deep that I have like a lump in my throat right here, just everything is just trying to bubble out at the same time because it just spoke to my heart and my spirit. Um, it was between the year 2015, 2016. I did a collection for New York Fashion Week, and it was based off of Ephesians 6, verse 10, which talks about the armor of God. How this got to me, I was sewing and just sewing, and as we know creatively, that when you're doing a task, and that learned behavior kicks in, your mind is almost it doesn't stay on what you're doing unless it's very, very different and very
Right.
designing that you're doing. And so as I was just stitching, that verse came into my spirit, and also the how to go about it. Now, when I did that collection for New York Fashion Week 2015, 2016, that collection was the best collection that I've ever done, and was so well received that a production company from USA in Hollywood, California, contacted us to negotiate the terms of getting the clothing into a movie, and the costs and so forth. Now, I say all of that because in the different shows and the different, whether there be a fashion show or an expo, other designers that I've come across from all the world over, I've seen them doing from their inspirations. One lady did a collection off of elephant ears, which was flowing gowns, and another person, a designer, she did off of columns.
Right.
And when I was out in the world, I used to find myself doing the same thing, and there's nothing wrong with that because God uses your past and your present experiences to guide you into that blueprint and that plan for your life. And I say all that to say this: in 2004, when I became a lover of Jesus, I didn't want to do designing anymore. Before that, I have been involved in shows, and all of them were based in Barbados. I never traveled overseas until I met Christ. And that particular time, I wanted to give up designing. I wanted to give up on this gift that God had planted inside of me because I knew what I did, such as dating a lot of the female models and all the other things that you would do as I wanted to do without really being understanding and knowing that God had my gift for purity and not just for what I wanted it to do. And so I wanted to give up on it. And he broke into my life, and as I was about to give up on it, he said it clearly. I heard this word said, I do not want you to give up this that I've given you. I want you to take my word through your designs to the world. Now, this is my biblical, spiritual, emotional philosophy. I want to spread the kingdom of God. I want to advance the kingdom of God. And the way that I'm doing it is through my designs. It might not do the clothing that has Jesus saves and that kind of thing. That there's nothing wrong with that. We're not condoning that in any way, form, or fashion. That is great. However, when I look at designs and I saw it in Genesis, when God saw what he did on the first day, the second day, the Bible said he saw it and it was good. And God beautified all of my past, all of my designs, and used them for his glory. And so striking that balance is what is also going to come from out of your heart motive, and your heart motive is also going to be determined by your relationship with Christ. Now, for those creatives out there who might at this point in time might have gotten so blessed, started well running with Christ, gotten to your pinnacle at the moment, and you have lost connection and you feel like God is so far away. He is not far away. He's quite near, willing and ready to take us back just as long as we just cry out with our mouths, not just only our hearts, our mouths. Lord, I need you. Daddy, forgive me. Help me move, get closer to you. It is about not just getting connected. You get connected, but also stay connected. I have been through this. Sometimes we will go through a season or a time in our years where everything is really good and God is put almost like a small part of our lives. And it begins with a small part. He's well able to take that small part and make it big. So be consistent. If you don't get in connected to God today, don't go 5-6 years without reading your word or your Bible or just spending some time with him. It's about that relationship, as Junior said, and all the others have been saying. It's about the relationship. We get there and we can grow, but don't get disconnected. Stay connected. One bit here, one bit there, it will grow. God is able to take that small seed and grow it into a big, marvelous tree in your life. So if you're out there, creatives, and you're feeling if God is no longer with you, that is a joke. That's a lie. He is always there, willing to take you back, willing to take any of us back. And also, just quickly, the inspirations that are striking that balance. All good things come from God. So your gift comes from God. As you get connected, he will take it and use it and beautify it and make it more glorious than you can ever think or imagine or dream of. And that's the crux of the matter there. And I guess that's what I would like to say to my fellow creators the world over.
If I may say something, I think
Go ahead, Charlie.
we also have to consider that we have creatives at different levels,
Mm-hmm.
and your maturity will determine a lot how you approach things. I'm thinking about the young creative who is now getting in there and trying to find a blueprint and trying to balance whether I look at other artists or do I just close my eyes and depend on the Holy Spirit. All I would say is that, like Moses, when he came to the point where he was looking for deliverance because he was surrounded by the enemy behind, he couldn't move to the left or to the right. I never forgot what the voice of God said. What is that in your hand? Meaning, you have to start with the skill and the talent, and it will start with a name. You might find you're able to draw. You might find you're able to paint. Whatever art form, whatever skill he has placed in your hands, you take that there as the beginning point. And then if you look in Exodus, in the text again, I guess Exodus here, 35, when God inspired the artisan, he inspired them with knowledge, with information, and skill in different disciplines. So, in other words, we can take a hint from what you did, and that can teach us what we need to do as well. When you recognize you have a different skill, you start to develop it. We have institutions, we have environment. Develop that gift because that very gift might be your profession. Who knows? Right? So it is a process. But just bear in mind, I always tell people, just bear in mind, even though you might identify the particular gift, that knowing you're an artist or a painter does not define or limit you. Always remember, eyes have not seen nor ear heard the things which God has prepared for them. So as you become faithful over the few or what you do know, He's able to expand your border, and then He might embrace you to do other disciplines or overlapping disciplines. But always remember, many times He starts with what is in your hand. In other words, what you can identify, all right? So that you know how to objectively develop it and you know also how to submit to Him to carry that beyond your own understanding. And now, the other thing in terms of finding the balance, when you talk about finding the balance between other artists and getting inspired from God, other artists mean you're going on Google as a painter and you're watching all the pictures, all the paintings, and all the techniques. Being inspired by God means like you almost shut away from that. And it's like while you're doing something or while you're in devotion, He gives you an image. He gives you detail. And it's so locked into your mind's eye that you can go and just start to paint or execute it. All I would tell you is that what you give attention to would be inspired by your intention, right? What you give attention to is inspired by your intention. Now, if at a given moment your intention is to learn a particular skill and to advance your craftsmanship, then you need to look at professionals who might have gone ahead and achieved things, right? Just like we are inspired by Moses or we are inspired by Esther. We read the scripture, so we are challenged to become brave and to do what God wants us to do. Then you look at other professionals in the arena and you can be inspired. But now, if you're looking, your attention now is toward hearing what God wants me to say through my specific gift of this specific moment, when then you need to close down Google and get in God's presence, or while you're doing something, He inspires you and He works from there. And I'll tell you this, sometimes He works with all two, as the Bajans say, all two oaths, but sometimes He works with all two. And I'll just give you a quick example. I remember when I was in my 20s, or just around 25, and I was just going through some, experiences that made you feel down and things of this nature. And I didn't like it, right? But of course, I was very much involved in drawing and painting and all of that. And what I felt in my spirit, come away from all of that and come and sit down with me. And as I
Mm-hmm.
opened my Bible, my eyes fell on Psalm 121. And it says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. It was at that moment, out of the blue, the Lord just revealed. He just inspired me to reveal this image of a woman standing at the end of the cliff. My ground is dark, my good area is dark. But as this woman stands up, her body glows because the light just streams from heaven onto her. And that piece was just inspired for that moment. So that told me, don't give up. Focus on God. Now that same image, when entered into exhibition, went all over on newspaper, full page on the Nation newspaper. That wasn't the intention, but it went on Nation. That very same painting sold in States, Canada. I had to do so many commissions on that one piece. What I am saying, when your intention is to hear from God, He will visit you
Mm-hmm.
there. When your intention is to improve in your skill and your ability, He will visit you there as well.
Daniel,
Yeah.
can you just remind me the question? I just want to hear in this full context because I want to make a comment, but I want to make sure that I have the right perspective.
Um,
Just remind me.
that question was just about striking the balance between being inspired by other artists around you and getting that inspiration directly from God.
Yeah. So, and I love I love how my sister just put it. And I want to go back to something I mentioned earlier. I believe that as creatives, we have the responsibility to manage the skill. Yeah, that,
Mm-hmm.
in anything that we do for the Lord, it must be done with excellence. And so I am a
Yes.
firm believer that the skill must be developed, that the skill must come to a state of maturity. And actually, even the Lord, when they were constructing the tabernacle, He asked for skillful men. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of value in learning from other people, in referencing other people. I believe we do it in our educational spaces if we have been formally trained. The content we take, and I believe that there's a lot of value from me as a writer and someone who
Yeah,
is who tries his best to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening around the world with music. I listen to everything. I listen to everything that's trending, and I'm sensitizing my ear to the songs that are captivating the world. Yeah. So if it's Kurt Franklin that just dropped the hardest thing, if it's Chris Brown, if it's Movado, if it's I'm listening, I'm taking in and I'm paying attention to what's happening around me. Yeah, because because my goal at the end of the day is to reach the masses, and I'm looking to see what are the things right now that are captivating, because we need to also recognize that we live in a world where there's, well, particularly in music, I can't speak for the other disciplines, but in music where it changes so often, and where the songs SOUNDS, they change so often, and there's a lot of value in paying attention and looking and seeing, and that does not exempt the believer from being the one that initiates the new trend or the new sound. But I believe that there's a lot of value by just being aware of your surroundings, by being aware of your contemporaries. I'm inspired a lot by many people around me, and something that I've found, interject myself right here now. Something that I've found I've been learning to do is to, is to see what's happening and manage. How do I keep up to date with what is excellent all around the world, and maintain and find creative ways to share my values, whether it's for a believer that I'm writing for, someone that's not a believer. How do I keep these international standards and also maintain the values that I believe that I hold dearly as a believer? And so I think the marriage can take place beautifully where we can learn from other people, where we ought to give give consideration to what's happening all around us, to be
Mhm.
inspired, to be encouraged, to be provoked, to be better. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It is true.
But I also think that there's a lot of value in then once we're connected, it doesn't matter if I jump on a dance. Because I'm connected, because my heart is always looking to the Lord. Like what I say in those particular things, how I create the melodies I create, they're going to be unique. They're going to be fresh. I use a medium, and we can use the mediums that are around us. But what when I put John into that experience, John is coming from having spent time with the Lord, and John is coming to bring a unique spin, a unique message into this. And when we create from scratch, when we do many times, we I love that we are able to sometimes push the envelope into a place where we're the ones, and I believe we can do that. As we consider what's happening all around us, we can push the envelope to a place where we say, all right, I'm gonna take this particular thing into a whole new stratosphere. I'm gonna take this into a whole new way where as the believer, I would just introduce a whole new song. Yeah. And so I think there's value in both. I think there's value in both. I am a product. I think I'm a product of having walked through watching others and learning from others, to the point where I sat with all the things I took from other people, from the world, from believers, and I grew as a creative. I grew in the skill because I was also growing as a man and as a believer. There came a point where I was able to create my own, where I found my own identity. I was able to pull from those references. I was able to from my time with the Lord, create something that has been unique, something that has been able to pierce both sectors, the religious ones and the secular ones, and create a unique space for me to be able to
Years.
in several. Huh?
I was just gonna pause you for a second because you're saying something really important here about finding your own identity as a creative. Because I know I agree with you in terms of striking the balance and how you can do that, because there's so much around you that can help you to hone your craft. But would you say that it is in those moments of personal connection that you really got a sense of who John is as a creative?
Yeah, most definitely.
Right.
So what I have now, I have a very wide catalog or library of references, but they all go through the filter of John.
Yeah.
Then that means that you'd never hear John create certain sounds, because I know who I am. I know where I stand. So certain it then helps me. It then helps influence the decisions I make, the content I create, the collaborations I use, and so because I am very secure in who I am and the things that I believe, that then in a very beautiful way influences where I lend my creativity to and how far I push it in a particular space.
Hey man, oh man, I know it is so good. There's so much information, so much that is coming out here tonight. We have to land this plane for part one. So listen, what we're gonna do, we're gonna split this video into two parts. We are going to air part two next Monday. Yep, you heard me right. Come back next Monday. We are going to air part two. You are going to be blessed, man. Listen, we are excited about all that God is sharing up through this panel. I know you'll want to catch all that is being poured out. Yep. So I will see you next time. We're going to land the plane here for this week, but God bless you. God bless you. I'll see you next time on Hindsight is 2020. Bye-bye.